Hi guys, this is Sajna Binir and welcome to the Super Achiever series. In today's session, I have Hemant Kondagari with me. Hemant is based out of Canada. He's into automation. He also helps his product owner with most of the business analysis activities. So he recently cleared his ECBA certification in NetNet just 10 days after he completed our masterclass. And he had some of the top scores in the key knowledge areas. So let's hear it from Hemant. How was his preparation? How he went about, understanding the core concepts of BABOK in just 10 days, so that all of you who are preparing for their ECBA exam can follow a methodology that can, actually fast track your exam preparation process. So, welcome, Hemant. Congratulations on your achievement.
Hello,
Everyone
Sajna. Thank
here
you.
would like to know how did you go about preparing for your ECBA exam?
To start off with, I actually printed out the whole BABOK book. That's like 500 pages. And after spending a day on the computer, like 3 hours, I understood I can't do it sustainably for long enough to finish the book. I started printing out papers and also look at the questionnaires that you had on your website. And what I used to do was a little unorthodox, but it worked for me. I used to go after your classes or maybe after I start reading each chapter. I used to go and start doing the multiple choice questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't score too much. I'd get like 70, 75 or something. But doing that, I kind of understood where I lagged in terms of knowledge areas. And I started focusing more on that. I would do the MCQs and then go back to Bebok and try and read everything and then
Mm-hmm.
try and spend more time on the knowledge areas that I was not scoring too much on. In terms of remembering all the elements in the flows and everything, if you pay enough attention towards it, like Bebok is kind of structured in a way where the flow is pretty natural. Like the transition from one knowledge area to another knowledge area is pretty transition.
Yeah.
It's pretty natural, and then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of start to see patterns in those
Correct.
areas. Like so, most of the times, like input for a certain activity would be a knowledge area or some activity that you have done before that.
Correct.
So that trying to see those patterns and trying to mem- I'm really bad at trying to memorize stuff, but so
Mm-hmm.
trying to see those and trying to logically understand, okay, if you were to do some kind of analysis, you need stakeholders. You need to try and understand who the stakeholders are, and also as a team, you need to have certain rules and governance plans in order.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to think that way helped me understand more, and also the MCQs. And
Mm-hmm.
one other thing I used to do a lot is every time I read about a certain knowledge area, quickly start thinking about my work and
Mm-hmm.
try and relate it to a story or some form of organization I've worked in, used a similar pattern,
Correct.
and just try and remember it in terms of that, like having real world scenarios to
Mm-hmm.
help me keep those in mind.
Yeah.
And
Establishing that relatability is very much important.
exactly.
Yeah.
So all in all, most companies follow the same process. Maybe they don't call it the same thing Bebop
Mhm.
calls it.
Yeah.
Bebop is a little bookish in terms of its language,
Mm.
but everybody has the same process. I just had to match a process, a certain thing we did in the past to the name they're giving it here.
All right.
So trying to match it like that, I kind of feel like I didn't have to memorize too much,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was pretty natural in terms of what comes in, what goes out. You kind of know, like in real life, okay, if you were to do this, you need certain inputs, and that's how I try to memorize. Um, I've read Bebok once
Mm-hmm.
from start to finish. I tried reading it the second time. I just felt like it would confuse me more.
Mm.
And based on the MCQs I did in your stuff and also a few of the online portals, it is pretty much a standard level, but it doesn't dive deep into that.
Mm.
So trying to understand too much also sometimes could be like harmful. Like
Yeah.
you start doubting your intuitions,
Correct.
and then so I didn't want to do that. I was trying to go with my gut feeling with most of the questions, and then it was working.
Mm.
But to be honest, ECBA I feel is like pretty straightforward. There's nothing to trick you or or, or increase the complexity in terms of questions. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it simple.
Mm.
Read through BABOK once, did your stuff a few times. Um,
Yeah.
the first thing I would suggest is try and book a slot. That
Mm.
way you have some timeline towards working.
Yeah, you're working
Uh,
towards a timeline. Yeah, that's target date
I,
is essential.
uh, for, I guess 1 month should be enough because I actually booked 1 month
Mm.
in advance.
Mm.
Uh, our course finished like sometime in December, and then
Yeah.
I had it booked for 1st of January,
Mm.
and after 10 days of studying, I just felt like Babok was eating away all my holidays. I tried to pull it forward as soon as possible. I got a day in 2 days,
Mm.
and then yeah, that's
That's
how it
great.
went from.
That's great.
More, but to be honest, most of the really difficult parts that maybe if I were to just read Babok, I wouldn't understand would be
Mm.
like input output and all these little
Mm.
intricacies.
Mm.
Those I would give credit to your MCQs because
Mm.
I've I've did it so many times.
Mm.
MCQs maybe like 3 or 4 times each.
Mm.
So that's how I memorize the stuff I'm supposed to memorize, and everything to go with logic just came in naturally.
Okay, that's great. So you have also got one of the top scores in our entire study group. I see
Yep.
all the knowledge areas you have scored 100%, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's 100%, but it says highest, so it should be that.
Mm.
Um, but just one thing I would like to say for somebody who's trying to
Mm-hmm.
give the exam, or something I would take away from my personal experience. I was in a lot of stress right in terms of giving the exam because I tried to connect it through my corporate laptop. It started blocking it, and then I was kind of missing the timing for exam,
Uh-huh.
at least the proctor one.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, the stress was kind of building up, and I spoke to the guys from, I
IBM.
think, web
Yeah.
browser. Yeah, IIBM, and then they kind of direct me to another team. They told me it's okay, you could miss it, like you could probably start in 10 minutes, but
Mm.
that kind of created a little stress to me.
Oh,
And the first 10 questions, I was not so sure about one or two of them, and then I started just calculating my percentage. Okay, so this is like 80, I should get 80 or more in rest of it. But once you get like a 10 right in a row, then your confidence just builds up,
correct,
and
correct.
it goes naturally. Like I would suggest trusting your instinct more
Mm.
than trying to think that okay, this could be a trick question or am I missing something, because more often than not you would be right.
Hmm. So there was some last minute technical glitches, right?
A lot of I've
Mm.
switched three computers trying to figure it out,
Mm.
and there was always some app in the background that I can't seem to uh, turn off, that keeps me from using that. I
Mm.
called PCPSI browser and their team, and they troubleshooted it for me. I
Mm.
started 15 minutes late, but yeah, it all's when that ends well.
So, how has ECBA changed your job scenario in terms of looking for a new job? Are you getting better
So
opportunities?
I've been getting more calls, I would say, in terms of volume, more than what I got last time. It
Hmm.
was a similar landscape in terms of how the market is, and also a similar timeline, like January, February, the
Hmm.
first quarter of the year. But yeah, it's only been 1 week since I've actively started looking for job. I still work at my current job. Um, but I seem to be getting more calls. And
Okay.
people do ask me about like my IIBA certifications, what I'm doing, and I be honest with them. I tell them I got my ECBA recently, and then I'll work my way towards CBAP, and just knowing that I have these are some plans I have,
Hmm.
so they're more interested. And also considering I'm going for a little uh, experience role, like 3 years, 2 years.
Correct.
CBAP is a little expectations, and then I
Hmm.
have to actually clear few things up for them. But if
Hmm.
it's a graduate role, I guess ECBA is ideal. Like I don't think they could do anything better in terms of trying to already prove yourself that you've done the work, that you've done your homework, and you're ready for the job.
Any specific chapter that you focused more on for the while you're preparing for the exam?
I looked at the weightage in terms of how the weightage was
You followed the
distributed.
weightage pattern, right?
Yeah, so and whatever was higher weightage, and then I spend more time like reading more stuff about it. And then if it's just like a 5%, you know they couldn't go really deep into.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
basic MCQ tactics. Like if it's just
Yeah,
5%, I wouldn't go too deep.
oh,
So I've spent some time on the chapters which have 5% or more, 5% or more. Like anything less than 10%, if you know the concepts, then you're good. I wouldn't go too much into like the input output and all
yeah.
those stuff.
Hmm. So, what's that one piece of advice that you would like to give people who are preparing for ECB exam?
Just book a date. Like don't give Bebok too much. I don't know. It's easy if you try and understand it. Spend some time. Don't be in a hurry to finish it. Read it and make sense of it. Try and relate it to the real world. If you've never worked, maybe try and relate it to the workshop that you did with Sajana or
Hmm.
something, and draw patterns from it. That
Hmm.
way, it's easier because if you're trying to memorize, it's 570 pages. Like there's no way you could memorize. Maybe
Correct.
you could just memorize a mind map in terms of how it goes, but not completely end to end.
Hmm.
And so that's how I would suggest somebody to go about it, and spend time according to the weightage. Like if it's 20%, then expect to dive deeper into that.
Hmm.
And if it's not, then you could skim the top layers and then still get away with that.
Hmm. So two important message, guys, that Hemant wants to give. Book a date so that you have a target date and you start working towards it. The
Yeah.
other point that he's mentioned is try to establish relatability. So BABOK concepts are a little heavy because the language of BABOK is a slightly sophisticated language. So it sometimes becomes difficult for people to establish that relatability. But as soon as you establish relatability, you start connecting the dots, you start drawing the patterns, just like how Hemant did. You will be able to automatically understand, how the inputs, outputs. So then very little of memorization that you have to do.
Yep.
Right, Hemant?
Yes. Just try and decipher the language. It has to be, a book has to be written in a certain way for various reasons. You don't have to
Correct.
memorize it in that language.
Yeah,
You could break it down, write a note of what it explains, and then memorize what it says. So
correct.
that way it's not too heavy, and then you're not caught up in trying to memorize lexicon that you don't have.
So thank you very much, Hemant.
Thank you, Sajja.